We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I'm back, bitches. So what does it all mean? I'm finally back and there's no more revisited media, even though I have enough, probably not as much as Prince, but I figure if I do 3 to 4 episodes and then go on hiatus where I can work on other things like I worked on the past 6 weeks, you can expect PIT, book tea, Star Trek tea, sports tea, pop culture tea, and reality TV tea. And in between, you could also expect republishing and chair twerking because I have bad knees and feet. Thank you for joining me for this episode of TNFro is Reading, or a bonus episode of TNFro's Bar if I get sponsors, but not until then. And enjoy this shake mix. My apologies to Henry Mancini, but a riff on the Pink Panther theme is in alignment with a podcast segment dedicated to a fictional PI and all about true crime, or fictional crime in this case. Don't you think? A scam is a scam. There are some frauds so well conducted that it would be stupid not to be deceived by them. This is an old school fraudster, Charles Caleb Colton, a 19th century British kook. He was a cleric, a writer, and he himself was a scammer. He fled from his creditors, ended up in the gambling salons in France, won a fortune, lost a fortune, and then he killed himself instead of going through some type of surgery. I don't know if I would want to go through surgery without antibiotics and clean, sterile technique in the 19th century. This week in fraud, the Ponzi scheme. First and foremost, I am going on record to say that I started doing fraud, and there are other and probably more funnier and maybe informative to a certain extent, definitely entertaining podcasts about fraud and schemes, etc. Scam Goddess Lacey, this is another podcaster, significant following. She actually is a well-known actress too. Got her hustle on, has great live shows from what I understand. She's definitely a comedian. She was on Black Lady Sketch Show, I believe, too, first couple of seasons. You know, she does a very good job of this. But I started this as a means for me to basically not only talk about private investigator, but also studying for the exam. I'm planning on becoming a financial fraud investigator if I can ever get into school to be able to take the courses and then finally take the exam. But again, I digress. right now it's a whole bunch of reading, and why not report on or talk about what I'm actually learning as I take my next step in my second career or third career. And I can't imagine not having a lifestyle like I have now, because for maybe 20 years, I actually have subscribed to the New York Sunday Times. This was during the time period when Carrie Bradshaw on Sex and the City, when the style section was, they used to call it the single lady sports pages, when before COVID, the dresses, that's how I started watching, what is that? Famous dress store in New York City, and all of Say Yes to the Dress and every iteration of that franchise. Didn't know who Randy was, and the ins and outs of picking a dress and bridezillas and all of that. But as of late, since I've now deviated into fraud investigations, pivoted, I now pay a little bit more attention to the business section. And lo and behold, I ripped out the face of who actually was on the front page of the business section. I'm like, why is this fraud on the front page of the business section? Of course, I gave it the middle finger before I ripped it out. Checked the back to make sure that I wasn't ripping out anything of significance. But me picking up any piece of paper, and one of the reasons why I avoid the news, because I don't want to hear about what Trump has to say, because it's guaranteed to be something slick and stupid. I don't want to read about Trump in the business section. I don't want to read about any other frauds. Only if you're going to do a 4-page spread in a business section on Trump, I want it to be of the detail of how his case, one of the 32 cases that he was convicted on, how they gathered their information and how to conviction, and what time he is fitting to spend if he gets, because he's been found guilty on all of these counts, what realistically time that he's going to have to spend. I don't care about him perpetrating a fraud on Apprentice. I don't care to hear about any of that. And in the same word, you got people working with you talking about the White House going to smell like curry. I have no time for that. What I do have time for is to figure out what is going to be the undoing of your organization, because you own some fraud S. So when I also got alerted on September 10th, in the news section, I believe this article may have come out through People, where they talked about the latest in scheme. What I said all that say about business, not only do I get my weekly stories from news and business section, I also get pointed to either online newsletters or other sources of information for this section. No, it's not funny, because there's nothing funny about people ripping other people off. It can be, because some of these stories are just so unbelievable. And I think Scam Goddess Lacey, she actually does a very job about finding out the hilariousness in these people's schemes. I see it because this is a modern day Madoff level scheme that they just trying to prosecute this mug on. I also am just amazed in the investigative arm of the Security and Exchange Commission a part of our government, how these separate departments have extensive investigative and prosecutory abilities, which our current chump Supreme Court is trying to roll back, but I digress, or their limitations. But until a lot of this goes back to private or they limit investigations, I learned about Mr. R.T. Russell Todd Burkhalter by reading this news article and how his scheme came tumbling down to the tune of $300 million. These big players, they don't suffer. It's the little people, the ones that actually lose all of this money, suffer. And he was a trip. I remember the last live game I went to was the Cardinals, this baseball game. I wasn't in Arizona. I was actually in Missouri. We got these scout tickets, sat next to this couple, bought us drinks. I had a great time. This was with the ex that within months I was going to outrank, and it was great. Had a great time until it wasn't a great time. But he would go to these big league or baseball games, and basically he took out advertisement with this as his catchphrase. His catchphrase was, let's see, what was his catchphrase? I had it underlined. Keep more, make more, live more. How do you do that exactly? Because if you keep your money, that means you're not investing it. And you can't really live it up because you saving the money. So I don't understand how that was even possible. If you live that as your tagline, why didn't somebody call BS sooner? And how did they suss out 300 Mill Large before it got to that point? This mug promised returns 10% within 3 months, but people were investing up to $1 million a day at one point. And then with that crazy tagline, which did not make sense. But as long as the Ponzi scheme is only as successful as the money that continues to go in. How it works is you get these people, you basically get these people to invest a whole bunch of money, siphon it off, pay off some people, and they're cool with it. Until there's some cash flow issues. Usually there's some cash flow issues when people stop getting paid, when the cash stops flowing to the investors. Nobody says anything until the check doesn't clear or they don't get the check. And if you keep calling, and they keep giving you the runaround, people end up getting tired, and then they start talking, and then they start suing. I don't think most people that have millions and millions of dollars to spare and to invest, as long as they kind of getting paid and they don't really need the money, they're cool. Only these people that are investing their life savings or from their 401ks and they're not seeing the returns, those are the ones that are going to start suing, because they're going to say, like, something is wrong here. I've tried to contact these people. Either people are changing their numbers, the numbers are no, so then they start selling, because they had a really crackerjack sales team that the people that made their most quotas, that got the most people involved as their sales pitch, even though it was all fraud, they're the ones that are getting prosecuted. The little man is never going to see his $100,000 to $200,000 investment or $20,000 investment. Nobody is going to see anything because the $300 million grift, they've already established that they're fraud, and you're not going to see anything unless they force all the stuff that he bought, like the super yachts and the houses and the cars and the jewelry. Unless they seize and auction that stuff, the only people that might get paid back are the first people that put up the flag of fraud, the fraud flag. Fraud. We're not talking about red flags, because I'm going to actually start calling that fraud flag. They say they don't know who tipped off the government. They probably already were sniffing around, because the government doesn't bring charges unless they know it's a fight that they're going to be able a fight that they're going to be able to win. And they already probably had somebody looking into this, because they say, okay, you made all of these claims on your website. We see your lifestyle on social media or in the trades, but we don't have the tax revenue or any other tangible things that meets up with the rate that you seem to be flashing your cash. It doesn't, the math is not mathing. You're not paying this in revenue. And then you got all these other spin-off lawsuits and complaints that class action lawsuits, people from Indiana. Then they start looking at your who is investing in this firm is people, the little people. You got whole retirement funds investing people's individual money, put it at risk, life savings at risk to support a scam. The only people that really truly meet are some of the initial investors, but anybody thereafter is deeper as the grift gets, the less likely are they to recover any funds. And it's usually the little people that really need that money, that it is their life savings, that now they're going to have to put off retirement and work to try to recoup some of those funds and be bitter in their jobs. Those are the ones that are really going to suffer. And everybody else is surrounding because they're going to be so bitter because they lost a couple of $100,000. I always am shocked. I'm not so shocked that there's a whole website dedicated to this, to be honest. But it's probably going to be the source of my research when I also report on other interesting cases. PonziTracker.com estimated that the total number of scams was up 13% from 2022 to 2023 after it has reached a 7-year high. Their whole agencies or departments within the SEC dedicated to looking into these scams, but are bereft of manpower. And if you got the right flim-flam president in office, some of these investigations can actually disappear with one call. That's why I think the previous Trump years, 4 years of stupidity, is going to take us about 20, that set us back 20 years. It's going to take us another 20 years to sort out just how many federal cases went away because a call was made to somebody within that administration and those types of cases absolutely disappeared. You can strip the manpower out of existence, but it doesn't, unless they destroy records, which is completely illegal. I think some of these cases are going to start popping back up. This case was bought during 2016 to 2020 administration. How many such cases? If we're talking about 20 to 40, 50, 60 cases a year that these organizations or complaints actually were bought, how many of these actual cases actually disappeared that we don't know about? I'm interested in finding out just how many. Because I know a lot, it seems like, and with the explosion of social media and people flexing online, I wonder just how much people are realizing the math is not mathing. We don't have the same fees, taxes to correlate with how much you are flexing with online. And all we need is that one case, and also a financial paper trail, electronic or otherwise, to figure out somebody is being flim-flam. So, interesting. How many such cases, valid cases, disappeared during those 4 years when a fraudulent president was actually in office and he had his minions with a power of a phone call could make such valid cases disappear? Very interesting to find that out.
Lift every chair and swing till all them white folks scream. Thought y'all could run up on our black king.
That is affectionately Lift Every Chair and Swing, right in time for the first anniversary of FAFFO Day, August 5th, known colloquially as the Alabama Broil or the Alabama Riverboat Broil. But as I said, it's officially the FAAFO Day. Holy crap-a-moly. How you be 35-10 in Dallas at the half? I'm talking about the Saints versus Dallas Cowboys. I just don't get it. I'm already mad. My pressure can't take it. I don't have too much to be sad about. What I am happy about is I don't even have the NFL package, and I'm able to watch split screen of the New York Jets versus Tennessee. It looks like Tennessee's actually leading that game. And then I'm at the half watching the highlights from other games. And Dallas is down so much. They down so much. I'm wondering, is Dak even playing? Or where's the offensive line? I just don't know, child. When you get beat that bad in Arlington, something is wrong. And how the hell you sign a $270 million deal and your team still losing? You doing what was his name? I used to say they used to lose in the last 2 minutes. Would throw for 400 yards and they still would lose. I don't know. And he had the support of Jerry Jones for years, Dallas Cowboys quarterbacks. Oops. Even Google know I'm this mad. But this also brings me to one of the reasons I used to go to the really early service, because I could get out, and I always had I could park my car in a certain way to get back on the interchange, which is hysterical to me when I think about it now. Tony Romo. and still would be in time to be able to watch an early game like on Sunday. And then that's when I started watching online and still catch the game. That's the time when we actually used to have 3 services, which I thought was wild. And the Las Vegas Raiders. Why is the Las Vegas football team not as good as Aja and them on the basketball team of the WNBA? Just saying. I just am pointing out. Far be it from me to point out the obvious, but it's fun. And I also wonder. I never had anything permanent in Dallas, Texas, because I don't think I know I wasn't. I knew I wasn't a good borrower then. Even though I had worked a whole bunch of hours, I did not have any savings. My credit score was for shit. I worked a lot when I worked as a contractor physician, as a peds hospitalist for a number of years. And it wasn't until I stopped working full-time as a full-time physician and moved more into corporate and my current role, I did not have to do contract work anymore. I enjoyed multiple years of working just in installation of electronic medical records, but even that, the heyday of electronic medical records is definitely over. And I can truly say, I'm glad it is. I think now we're seeing some of the fallout of the go days, because these big installations and conversions, and then you have all these other with high turnover and not a lot of money being put into maintenance and across the board fixes. And when you're the test dummies for a lot of these companies, you get a hodgepodge of mess. And so now the work that I did back in the day, I'm seeing a lot of these providers or hospital systems, in fact, are converting to the ops. I say all of this to say is, even when I lived in Oregon, I still would not be able, I'm not in the same financial position that I am in currently. And I've learned a lot. 2020 was my year. I basically was able to fully sell all of my property in North Carolina and move full-time, and not just rent an apartment or a room or in an Airbnb, whatever, in Tennessee. I was able to take advantage of one of my military benefits, use VA loan to finance my first purchase here in Tennessee. Grateful for a corporate position that allows me to save money, that allowed me to work on my credit score, get my debt down, and be able to become a homeowner. I've seen in just 2 short years the value of that home increase a huge percentage. If I were to so choose to sell the house, the equity I had built in the house, I still couldn't afford to be able to purchase anything near its size and all of the amenities in my house versus just a couple of short years ago, because the housing, the cost, and I think the reverberations from everybody from California and the West moving out east for a favorable climate, less Democrats outside of the city limits, temperate climate, they all came here. So the housing values went up. And our tax structure is so, because we got Republicans running the government, our tax structure, especially on property taxes, are really low. And I make a grip, and I don't, granted, I could do my job, and I think personally that I do it well. I make a grip, but I don't work as hard, and I work from home. I don't have a lot of expenses. I don't have to fight traffic. I don't have to talk to a whole bunch of crazy coworkers. There is no water cooler talk. I don't get caught up in office politics because there ain't no office anymore. I also figured out after a 6-month waiting period, as the interest rates continue to drop, depending on what the Fed does, after 6 months or so, I actually am eligible to refinance and get the best rate. Unless there's a big cut and I basically can work on my credit and get it close to either 5 or even 4%, I'm Gucci right now as far as what my current rate is. This is the first time, I've had some outrageous rates in the past, but at 5.99%, this is the first time in the history of my being a homeowner that I've had such a great financing rate. I also realized that I don't like change. It wasn't until recently that I actually transferred my broker for home insurance and car insurance from years of being with agency in North Carolina, finally to Tennessee. How you gonna know that I've been on with y'all for 20 some odd years, or y'all can't tell me about changes that resulted in no coverage for part of my personal property? I hate North Carolina. Nationwide ain't shit. I'm going to see about what's going on in Tennessee. But I've been with Nationwide for since 1993 when I bought my first car. So I ain't going nowhere right now, but y'all need to recognize. I've also noted that Bank of America really ain't shit either. And most big banks are not. Because what I have found out after I refied again in 2024, I started learning about mortgage loans. Of course, because I'm fraud. I'm interested in that. But the 2008 crash was in part and mostly due to shady lending practice, a lot of fraudulent activity within the mortgage industry. What we're seeing now is people are still packaging mortgages into some products for further investment. So not only are we seeing people are very interested and can take advantage of the dip in interest rates, but also notice that your mortgage can also be used as instruments for other people's investment activity. But I knew, again, I'm not going to move anywhere. Moving is not elemental. It is very hazardous to your health. I have PTSD from the last time I moved. There's really not a whole bunch of reasons why I would leave my current home. At these rates and with a saltwater heated pool, I need to go outside once it stops raining to turn that bitch off, because even though it's felt good, I know I'm probably not going to swim again until Tuesday or Wednesday. So I need to turn the gas heater off, but I still have my hot tub. It's still always on. I have made some improvements for said hot tub, upgraded my new pool heater, as well as expanded the back deck, and then did fenced in or screened in my back porch and made it accessible from the master bedroom. And again, I know that has added value to my house. There's some changes that I'm planning in the next 6 months or so, also additional adding value. Solar panels are in my near future, as well as closing in the back patio. I'm tired of sharing my space with bugs and birds. It's about me and Ethel being able to open all the doors or take them off and walk out and sit on my back porch and enjoy it without the creepy crawlies trying to take over. So, with that said, why can't I now utilize the home equity to add more equity to the house? This is what I thought. If I'm going to have my credit pool, why not open up a home equity line of credit? I'm a long-term customer of Bank of America. 30 years should mean something. Well, evidently it don't mean shit. I found out, and I started getting really suspicious of Bank of America's lending practices for a variety of reasons. As I said, I've been with Bank of America since I opened up my first account by telephone back in the day, back in 1997. I had just graduated from medical school and was on my way to residency in Texas, of all places. My ABA or routing number is still a Texas routing number because I opened it up freaking 27 years ago by phone in Dallas, Texas. And they made the application process I thought was interesting, that I just open up the app or online and applied. And the first sign of trouble was the uploading product was a little bit hinky, even though I kept uploading the necessary documents. It kept telling me that I needed to upload these documents. Come to find out, they were being uploaded, but the system had some kinks in it. Fine. They also, and I ended up finding out that it was showing I had duplications of those said documents in their system, and it finally was assigned to somebody who also seems, interestingly enough, a little bit annoyed, and she acts like she don't know who the hell I am every time she contacts me. So I was like, okay, girl, that's red flag number 2. Another red flag was the appraisal came back on the property. I had estimated my property to be a certain amount, which was right between what was showing on a couple of different websites, including Zillow. So when my appraisal came back, basically she was like, well, it's only $10K less than what your estimate was. And I was like, $10K is a lot of fucking money. What are you talking about, girl? And why do y'all have such restrictions on a house that I just made improvements on? She asked me some stupid shit like, oh, can you see it from the road? No, you actually have to physically come in my backyard. Or if you use the pictures that the contractor took on Google, then that's the only way you can see the improvements. And you mean to tell me that because they just did this appraisal last year, and the improvements I did only added $8K to the value of my property? Okay, girl. And then you seem to be fishing for reasons to say no or to devalue my property. Come to find out, I had taken a personal loan with one of these, and it's going to work out for the good. You have to be very careful about the lending processes of all these other companies, because they can do a UCC filing, which is kind of a soft lien on your property, and it can pop if you go looking for it. they put it under, okay, this is for improvements like windows, etc., which I didn't use the cash to do that. But they basically, that's how they do these filings, because they look to make sure that they're going to get their money if you actually sell your real property. These people are not crazy. And they also knew the value of the property had gone up. And I guess doesn't make sense, didn't know this, because again, just refied the property back in just in July, and they did, this never popped. But Bank of America uses this as an extra layer to kind of basically say, decrease the amount of available equity in your home, even though it is not a second mortgage. It's just a filing. And they want to take that into consideration before they say they use it as a means to increase your debt ratio. Even though they're not supposed to use this, this is another way they sneak in, make your ratios look really bad when they really are not. But it works for the purpose, but it's going to, again, my debt is going to increase because I got to pay off the loan, which is probably at a higher rate anyways. That's why people do refinance and take outs. That's why people may use equity. And you can't mean to tell me with my salary and my current credit leanings, but they seem to be continuously digging and seem to be taking an inordinate amount of time to basically say yes to something that should be relatively easy. So me and my paranoia and my cynicism, I was like, has anybody taken Bank of America to task, and what is their track record as far as discriminatory lending? Well, they do. And their cases, as well as several other bank cases, went away. Right after the mortgage bust of 2008, there was a regulatory agency that was actually created within the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency that went after the discriminatory practices of these big banks. The biggest payout went against Wells Fargo, and they're discriminatory. The problem was right when the Trump administration basically was elected to office, they basically, in order to make America great again, their main goal was to roll back every civil rights action, take away affirmative action, take away Roe v. Wade, and also relax the discriminatory efforts of these and relax false and really discriminatory practices of these big banks. Make it harder and harder. You can't redline like you could back in the day. Redlining is a way that homeowners associations, banks, and other businesses basically drew lines against whole neighborhoods and pieces of areas where there were people of color, African Americans, to keep them from either the benefit of the equity on their homes, or they couldn't actually become homeowners. Can't do that anymore because a lot of us live in places like North Shore of Chattanooga, Tennessee. We work all over the place. Some of us work from home, like I do, and my home is my office. There's so much equity in this house, but it just seems like they were making it harder for people that look like me. Single dog women. I'm African American and I'm female. But I do have a great credit score, great job, I am carrying a little bit of debt, but not as much as outpacing what my income is. I'm on the upper end of upper middle class. How much the grip that I have, and I have a decent amount of savings. But it seems like these big banks are utilizing that. They're the only way, even though I would be a great borrower, because I have a track record of making good on the money. They're basically using possibly my gender and my race to basically look as hard as they can and come up with some fishy antics to not allow me the benefit of utilizing the home equity to increase the value of, already increased the even more. Wouldn't you want this house and me on your books? Because I check all the boxes. But that's the thing about racism and discrimination. They will cut off their nose in spite of their face. You have the opportunity to have this house on your books and the property. And I checked that it's possible anti-discrimination, but you're still making it hard for me to access equity that's rightfully mine. Who does that? Who would want to do that? It is disheartening, but that's the whole thing about racism and discrimination. This is how you basically gut a whole office that will make it hard for everybody to share a piece in the pie. Because if you give people security and you make it so that it's not punitive for them to actually try to get ahead, that's when the whole society benefits. But when you do this discrimination and pit people against each other and count people out, you basically hold back the advancement of everybody. Why wouldn't you want to make sure this house appraises for, has a higher appraisal than, and keeps the property values of the whole neighborhood up? And that only benefits somebody. But when you try to be punitive to a subset of people, that's when everybody is penalized and nobody can advance. Y'all need to recognize. And also, there seems to be so many suits and that disappeared over that entire administration to keep Attorney General Garland as well as former Attorney General Harris busy for the next 8 years and until the next century. Unfortunately, there's a lot of undoing of this ultra conservative rightward swing that they're going to have to dismantle, because I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. 6 to 8 cases of obvious discriminatory practices in the banking industry just disappeared in 2018. How many more of these are just waiting to be rediscovered and reopened? I think there's a hiring craze that's going to need to go on, and there's going to be a series of litigation, because people only start acting right when you hit them in their pockets. And I think the time for Bank of America and several other banks need to pay attention. 124 million that Wells Fargo got charged is only a drop in the bucket about what the discriminatory actions that y'all have taken place in a collective manner over the last 4 to 5 years. Y'all better. The reckoning is coming, and y'all have a right to be scared. Or you should be scared. I said what I said. The Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch. I hope turning up for checks to pay for fake lives. Turning up for I'm just really rewatching a lot of the Real Housewives series, because The only reality TV that, besides some of the Love and Marriage Huntsville, Carlos King's production company, Kingdom Reign, is producing, there's a lot to be said about the unwatchability of some of these series. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is getting ready to come back. I'm not sure if everybody's going to be clocked in, and I think they're going to have to rethink Monica, who basically had her really pathetic slam book or burn book, the closing of the reunion last season. And then they have this other Salt Lake City Housewives series that's coming up on Hulu. And it just, I think there are multiple episodes that have been released that I'm going to probably have to get into, because it talks about this group of couples in Salt Lake City, all of them Latter-day Saints, and they all swing. What? That is some reality sexual salaciousness that promises to possibly be boring if it's not produced or edited correctly, but I'm here for the mess. I just want y'all to put that out there. But I've just basically finished the last several seasons and rewatched the entirety of like season 18 and Real Housewives of OC. And I have several questions I wanted to ask. I asked myself as I rewatched it. I think Tamra Judge's son, Ryan, is a putz. Or in the words of Sophia Petrillo, is a yut. He privileged. And they ran it back, some of the things he said and did throughout his privileged life. And then they have him on screen being depressed and put upon because he still doesn't think that his family set him up enough to give him more, to have a better start in life. When he squandered all of those things. Yes, his stepfather, Simon Barney, I think that's what he was a yutz, douchebag supreme. And he came into his life when he was 13 and already partially grown, and probably wanted to overput his own level of doucheness on him, and he just wasn't having it because he was a 13-year-old kid in OC. Couldn't tell him anything. But he always has like, don't call me a victim, but he's really has this white fragility that got old. We watched Tamra Judge now. His mother loaned him money, went from her house to his baby mama's house. Then he keeps getting fired from jobs. He just has all the makings of an antisocial. And he was also a Trump supporter. He was doing all this stuff and probably saying a whole bunch of nonsense, and his openness support of Trump basically not only probably put strain on her home, it also, and I'm sure he blames her for not protecting him against Simon, but also blamed her for all the dumb choices that he makes. That's what somebody that is really fragile does, and have a really love. And these are the types of people, these basement dwellers, those are the type of people that support Trump then back in 2015, 2016, and that are still supporting his still stranglehold on the Republican Party. You got somebody that is really a dumbass that is supported by other dumbasses blindly. And it's okay because they all are mediocre, all are fail in whatever business or attempts that they try to do. And that's just the bottom line of it. They basically, and they did, and it really kills me that I believe he had something right. I'm from the generation where parents were like, we're going to get you to adulthood barely, with the bare minimum, and then you on your own. Some of us, we figure it out sooner than later, before or after, most of the time before we of legal consenting age. Some of us do it at 16, 18, and some of us do it positively. And we also know there is no second chances. We can't always go home. So we're going to do whatever we have to be successful. We take on the attitude of Emily Simpson. And that's why I get her. Emily Simpson is another OC housewife. Her and Shane, I also realized when she was dieting or low carb and working out all the time, she was just hangry. But her fight always stemmed from how she was raised. When her father left, her mother fell into a deep depression, and it was up to she and her sister to basically take care of themselves. And it was either sink or swim. In her own words, there was no going back to Ohio. There was no going back to her family. She had to get herself through school, get herself to school, through school, and pass the bar. And she did it in that order. Married Shane, who is a half Persian, practicing Mormon, and they figuring it out. And they doing it positively, but you can see somewhere where the chips are, the kinks are in what she does. She came on the show, used her creative side as event planning, but during the day, I believe she either did trademark work or patent work, and that allowed her to basically work from home and have a whole bunch of kids. Multiple miscarriages, final success with IVF and surrogacy. And she's good with 3 kids. I don't know what the final result is on those embryos, those girl embryos that she has left over, because she talked about she wanted her daughter, who's the only girl of 3 kids. She has a set of twins, but she also wanted her to have the same relationship as she had with her sister. But I think she also is coming to terms with 4th child is not necessary. Also, that she had that codependency or strong relationship with her sister because they were survivors. And maybe her oldest daughter doesn't really need that because she has both parents and her knucklehead brothers. She may not need that type of forced or forged bond when it's always stressful, when you also have to try to split up your time and energies between 3 separate kids with 3 separate personalities. I also am a firm believer when they put Tamra Judge on pause, Vicky Gulvinson should remain on pause. She does not need to be a full-time housewife. I was so sick of her basically saying, "Just amigas!" Aggravating. And also, no, you are not. She cut the fool after season 14 when she basically went on pause, said, this is my show, how dare you? And she also sued them. And unlike Nene Leakes, she, I think she dropped the suit or they settled. But she still do a pop-up. And famously, a pop-up during the Trader episode of this current season where Teddy Mellencamp and her shady behind was like, to all the housewives and Vicky. The shade is so real and it is so sweet and it is not so mean, but it's hilarious. You know, all these other people coming in from other franchises and putting their spin and brand of shade is so much better than that other underfed lady who came from Beverly Hills. I can't even think of that child's name. All I want to do is basically feed her a sandwich because she was way, way too thin. This is before Ozempic, etc. I don't even think I wrote down her name because she was such a non-factor. Wow. Anyways. The season 15 and 16, the no Tamra Judge years, were virtually unwatchable. Watching Shannon Beador deny the amount of alcohol intake, you can't completely hate on her because I think she left. I think she was actually gone by then. I honestly do. I think she was actually gone because when she finally did come back, I'm talking about Heather Dubrow, you know, she came back with a blast and more fabulous and thinner than ever. And there's no tea. This is straight truth. This is no cap. No cap. Her and her husband are just filthy rich. That when they sold their house and moved back to LA, but I also think she came back to OC because the Beverly Hills bitches were like, nah, girl, we don't give a freak how much money you have. And everybody, and she probably came out of there like a bull in a china shop and wanted to wreck and demand stuff and basically be a producer. And they don't need any more producers in Beverly Hills. It's wonderful that y'all are famously and y'all not fronting. They did have the real estate in Bel Air or Beverly Hills, but nobody cares. I'm sure they probably told her like they told Vicky, nobody likes you and you didn't test well. So she went back to OC where she actually has a following, and they can afford it. Okay. Also, having Kelly Dodd with Shannon and even at this time Gina and Emily carry on a show was not a good idea. I'm here for the mess, but I'm just not here with this bottom basement filth. And that's who I believe Kelly Dodd was. She always goes below the belt. Nobody was able to bring her up out of it. There was nothing in her past dating life that basically showed that after her divorce from her husband, that she was ever going to make it with that plastic surgeon, Dr. Reagan. Believe it or not, she was too trashy to be the next Heather Dubrow. She did not have that level of class. Who she did marry, that ex-Fox News anchor, that was more of her level of trash. And it just got really old. And I believe those 2 years were probably the least favorable as far as in must-see TV and ratings, which in itself is sad. Also, getting back to the Gina of it all, I really do believe that can't even pronounce that child's last name. This is the girl that she actually had a DUI at the top of her presenting her second season. She also had initially a pretty contentious divorce from her husband. who then she brought up on charges. He got brought up on charges of domestic violence. She gave a victim statement. Now, separately, they are co-parenting. She's in a long-term relationship with another dude who they got their real estate license with. And at the top of this season, they're exploring how they're navigating this next stage in their relationship. Did not realize her current boyfriend is not divorced yet. It appears that there's some issues with his estranged wife. They've been separated for a number of years, but they can't come up with some type of settlement. But he and Gina blended the family. Now she's basically saying, we're going to have to separate the family until you get yourself together, because she can't continue to live with this this additional wife in their relationship like a roach in the corner. I get it. And I'm interested in seeing how much she shares and how that develops out, because we saw how well she came out on the other side, scathed and her pockets lighter. But the demise of her first marriage, we saw that play out in pretty real time. Very upfront. Her and Emily seem to be clocked into this season. And messy as messy can be, but there's a balance because there's some truth telling. Because they gotta be. And enters in Alexis Bellino and Shannon Beador. I don't understand why she settled for John Janssen. And she kept, for the last several seasons, she kept saying, well, I pay for everything. I pay for everything. Then he sued her because she was saying some pretty gnarly stuff, probably in social media. And probably when she drunk dials people. She actually is now, we're seeing that she, at the end of season 17, right when, after they finished filming the reunion, she ended up getting a DUI after she basically ran into their house. But there seems to be more to that story. From the same night, not only was she could have killed herself, she also put his kid in grave danger. They seem to have some videotape from Ring camera. And they went from all of those, from the years of he may or may not marry her, I pay for everything, her self-medicating with alcohol, to now he's with thirsty but Alexis Bellino, and it seems like their MO being together is not only rub their picture perfect relationship in Shannon's face, but also rub the fact that she was completely out of control. And that's the bottom line. By the time she picked up this DUI, she had been saying stuff about Gina. People, why did she drive drunk when we have Uber, et cetera here? And she, now fast forward a couple of years, she's basically in the same predicament. And the same lawyer she gave the number to for Gina to get her out of her mess is, I don't even think she can afford to even call this dude to get her out of this current mess with this DUI and this lawsuit. And why did she put that disclaimer on it? This is the last thing I also wanted to speak on too. She put some type of tag on it. If she pays you this money, then you can't disparage me after I pay you this money. And John Janssen is like, but that's all you've been doing for the last 4 years. I'm not going to take that. It's like you trying to pay me off and you're trying to spin it that I'm trying to extort you, when that's not the case. I'm not going to settle for you being able to continue to talk to the press and the blogs and on your show how a bad person I am, and I'm going to give it back to you. And it's just, and it comes to what some of the other people are saying about Tamra Judge. I'm sure Tamra and John Janssen has seen more than what the watching audience has seen over the last several years. There's so much more that she has not revealed and has tried to spin. And they're putting up their boundaries. I can only imagine what they've put up with and tolerated. If you don't listen to any other podcast beside mine, I'm going to suggest you listen to this past Thursday, Reality with the King, Carlos King's podcast on Spotify or where you ever listen to podcasts, because they dissect the alcohol intake of it all. And there were several points that I want to reiterate here. You can't make someone that is an addict or an alcoholic admit it until they're ready. Even though you can think they're 2-drink minimum and I don't do this X, Y, and Z, you can't keep them from ordering alcohol. You can't keep them from ordering all of these things. And you can point it out until you blue in the face. All it's going to make you look like an asshole. So until they're ready to admit that they got a problem, and I don't know, by running your car into a building and knocking your head against the windshield, if that's not your wake-up call and you're saying you still don't have a problem as you order your second vodka stinger, yeah, I think I'm done. I can listen to you. I'm not going to give you a pass, but what I'm not going to do is, but even though it's so funny, she says, how often do you think about what happened on that night after you had your second or third drink of the day? Tamra Judge ain't going to let you off easy, but I'm sure she has seen and put up with so much over the last several years, because she's known Shannon Beador for a number of years. When she was Beador, when she went back to Storms, probably right before she was a Storm. And she's seen the lies. She's seen the subterfuge. She's been on the call with her blubbering in the middle of the night, and her old husband Eddie saying, you need to hang up on her because she's tripping. And she continues to greed and try to dump her psychological detritus on you and then blame you for not being there with her. And she's basically put up for her, or probably for her own mental health. The buck stops here. I'm not going to pick up your call, but I'm going to call you out and call BS. And I'm also not going to be nice about pointing out when you know you lying. To the untrained eye, it looks like you don't kick somebody when they're down, but also you also have to set limits with somebody that's been a repeated perpetrator of the worst psychological fraud for over a decade of this BS. No, she decided that she was no longer going to be thirsty butt Vicky Gulvinson. If she wants to clock in for her job, she is. But she also is going to have to find a balance where she's not going to allow Shannon Beador to suck the psychological well-being out of her. And I'm wondering how Alexis Bellino and John Janssen of it all, who basically say he doesn't want to be in front of the camera, but he's always camera ready, and Ferragamo shoes that evidently Shannon may have bought for him. How are you going to navigate it, and when are you going to just say enough is enough? I think rebuilding your brand without coming off as King Douche is a balance that you got to take. I'm also questioning why, well, maybe not. Alexis Bellino does not need to ever get married again. I looked up what her settlement was from Jim Bellino. She basically, it looks like she's going to get spousal support in the tune of over, between spousal support and child support, tens of thousands of dollars per month in perpetuity. Name the beneficiary on a $25 million insurance company. If she never, and I'm sure, and with those stipulations, she's still going to get spousal support, even if she does get remarried. But why is she going to marry broke butt John Janssen? If he has to rebuild, he needs to take another tactic to actually rebuild his name. One of the things that they probably need to do is say, and also this is for Shannon, if these videos are so damaging, why don't y'all have a watch party and you can basically get out in front of it? Because if she's really doing the work, this won't make her. She's not going to look crazy and you're going to not look crazy. But you also got, it's a balance though, because if she really did put the daughter in danger, she could actually be brought up on charges of assault. And all of this stuff is recent. I don't think the statutes of limitation are up on that quite yet. So they got time. And maybe her seeing her at the worst, at her one of the many times, if they got, I'm sure he has many other Ring camera footage, when she was at her worst and comparing to what she's doing and the work she's doing now, maybe that would also aid not only in her getting her reputation back, because that's taking a hit. She's basically got hit in the pockets with all of her businesses. And you basically not just showing the truth, but showing how this is helpful. That is how, when you release this salacious kind of stuff, what is your purpose of holding on to these tapes? To make her look worse, or to make, in order to make yourself look better? No, it just makes both of y'all look crazy. So if you're going to release the tape and y'all are basically going to have a sit-down conversation with a professional to see where you went wrong then and what work you've done now, that is how both of y'all could, it's a win-win, and both of y'all could get in front of this and work and legit work this stuff out. But this talking about this stuff and spreading more rumors, y'all just, all of y'all looking crazy, and it's starting to develop into a snowball shit show dumpster fire. Before you get to that point where everybody wants to vote you off the island, yeah. Do I think Shannon Beador is on the brink? No. Most addicts are too scared to really truly hurt themselves, and especially with alcoholics. And I'm not sure by y'all threatening to expose these videos is going to be the one that she's going to drink her true self into a coma and alcohol poisoning. However, what I would like to see is everything that she's basically doing besides getting another facelift or coughing herself through a sound bath. What other work is she doing to address the alcohol intake? And what other boundaries is she putting up for herself? What work is she truly doing to make herself, besides paying off this fraudster, besides going off on his new girlfriend? What are you doing to build yourself up? Instead of focusing on all of this external stuff that you can't control, what are you doing to improve and to get yourself together? Because this all woe is me, pitiful me stuff is all well and dandy, but what other work are you doing to take back your power? because it's getting old, girl. I'm getting tired of both you and Alexis Jesus Jugs. Also, it also got, and that's what I wanted to talk about. I just think I had written a note about Noella Bergener, how I couldn't watch season 15. It was literally unwatchable. But then I realized that there was a whole bunch of one-hit wonders like Elizabeth and Ryan, her husband, Nicole, and then there was who actually the house they went to in La Quinta, she actually was a one-hit wonder housewife. But they were all acting like they didn't know who she was, or that's how it was presented. I'm like, she was on Real Housewives of OC. It was either 15 or 16 I couldn't watch. And I'm wondering, and it just tripped me out that for all the fabulousness and the fashion, how were the only women of color so ill prepared, or they messed up their own bag? One, I got tired of the one shoulder shirts of Kelly Dodd. That got old. That's worse than them sunrise shirts that they had in seasons 1 through 5 that they all wore. But they both were just so classless, and they just could not find a balance. And we only saw the corrupted, disgusting part of their personalities. And that's what is going on now. What's her name? I can't even remember this child's name. The Asian girl, who I think she's going to be a one-season wonder. Her personal story is great, but her harping and demanding that Heather MF and DeBro needs to talk to her and listen and hear her out, nah. And she's so willing to try to take out established Kirschenbaumer. Yeah, Kirschenbaumer, that's Gina's last name. Gina out, take her down with her, even though you made the decision and you did not know how to play the role about what the hand that you were given or knowing how to deviate. No, girl, you are so not ready for reality TV, and definitely not OC Housewife, because them bitches are cutthroat. This child's not ready for it, and it seems like I don't know if it's just a self-prophecy or self-destructive nature, but there's something with it does not appear that these women have the same staying power as, what's her name? Gabrielle Bouveau from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. They ain't got that same type of stamina and the wherewithal to navigate the treacherousness of this franchise, because I think she's on her way out. I'm thinking they're going to need to look for a replacement for her and look for one soon. So, and this is no shade. There's some people are just not, because sometimes normal can be interesting, but how can you also be halfway normal and freaking boring when you got such a rich backstory? Girl, get out of my face with that mess. So that's how we're going to end this episode, and I'm going to end it with a positive word. I used to scoff at people making this statement, maybe because of its simplicity, or maybe because it sounded more like an admonishment that I was being everything but kind. But then when I started investigating it for myself, that's when I realized that I was confusing politeness with kindness. Politeness is a fake, superficial manner in which there's no required investment, no self-reflection. But being kind is an adjective. It is an action. If you're kind to yourself first, it's like exercise memory. You will continue and be kind to others. Let that sit with you for a while. I'm going to try to be kind to myself. I'll be kind to others. It's very simple, and you got to repeat it. Lean into the spirit of a new year by counting your blessings, giving to others, and spreading happiness. I know I will. And this episode, or this podcast, is my means to spread joy and happiness and light and enlightenment. There's so much going on with aggression and just meanness. But if I can leave you with one small positive thought, start your day with that, that can change everything for you. And just basically change your day. Don't forget to check out Dale's Angels Inc. for the notes on this podcast, as well as other works by CQM and other contributors that are in work or in being edited right now. Also, check out my Instagram feed, TNFro is Reading. You can check me out on Facebook, TNFro is Reading Book Club, as well as my YouTube channel, TNFro is Reading and Eating. And what I'm just chatting and streaming at TV Food Wine Girl on Twitter. Navigate to Writer's Block Coffee or shipabagadicks.com. Use my promo code TNFro Coffee or TNFro Got Jokes, respectively, to get a percentage off of your order. Don't forget to drop me a line at TNFroisreading@gmail.com. All non-trolling messages may be actually read online, and you can do the same if you are in Podbean or Anchor or wherever you listen to the podcast. And again, shedding light and positivity. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed creating it. Until next time, bye.